very often when you're in a difficult situation, you must go through self-talk, because very often people see you and they think you're fairly sorted in life, but they don't know where you're coming from, and they don't know that life really dealt you also a few difficult hands that you had to play. It's amazing, the stressors in life, and very often we try to run away, but instead of going head on. I mean, stress in life is always, there's a stressor and there's an ability to handle it. And if the stressor is bigger than the ability, our big thing is we want to curse the storm away. But what would you think of a soccer player or a baseball player? You say, no, you can't put that pitcher against me. Or a cricket player, you can't put that bowler against me. Or for a soccer player, you can't put that striker against me. You cannot choose in life what balls are coming your way. But so don't wish the storm away. Just put on a jacket, or get some techniques to weather the storm. And therefore, our essence lies not in changing the circumstances, but in upping your game and in really upskill yourself, getting your batting ability, upskill yourself. And I think that is the amazing, beautiful part of our job, that we try to empower people to do that. We do not wish the reality away, even if it's a worldwide virus, even if it's was the credit crunch of many years ago, even if it's a personal crisis. Realize that you cannot wish the storm away. Actually, storms are good. You know what my father said? He was an amazing and interesting old man. He said, Gustav, a desert is the result of too much good weather.
Wow.
A desert is the result of a place where there's not enough storms. Because if you think, let everybody think back about the storms in their lives. And if you go think about that difficult time, I always ask people, did growth come from that? And they said, yes. And I said, no, was it so bad? Think about the Second World War. How many inventions that we have today, jet engines, all of those things, would be the result. Rockets, landing on the moon was a result of the Second World War, that people developed these engines. So from every bad situation, people rise to the occasion, because the storms, I mean, life bends us like this. But it very often, if you plow on all fours, it opens up fertile ground for new growth. And therefore, a person, very often if you go through a storm, you lose your shallow friends. I've seen it so many times. You become a deeper person. You cannot deal with these shallow friends anymore, because you're just a deeper person.
It's so amazing. And even sometimes I've been shocked. The people that I thought were my closer friends were not. And the ones that I thought were like, it was the opposite of what I would have thought when it was a tough time. The people who were right there, you're right. The true friends come, they get risen from that. And, to that point, there's so many stories we could tell, but even in World War II, there's a place in France that like the most people died. So like the saddest part, like so many, they said it was so bad that you couldn't even see the ground. There was so many bodies, but that is said to be the most fertile land in Europe right now.
Yeah.
That,
and
what I mean? It's crazy
that you can turn the biggest threat into an opportunity. I remember, you make me remember things now from long ago. Very often, when you're in a difficult situation, you must go through self-talk, because very often people see you and they think you're fairly sorted in life, but they don't know where you're coming from, and they don't know that life really dealt you also a few difficult hands that you had to play. But I remember my bit of self-talk was, now we started with this words play on my name, Gustav and good stuff.
Yeah.
But I heard many years ago, I heard this corny saying, when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. You know how I self-motivated? We teach people to have these self-mantras. You don't share it in public, so I'm actually breaking a rule here. But when I went through a difficult time, I told myself, when the going gets tough, Gustav gets going.
Yeah.
And I think that is, that there's nothing as boring for me as a sunshine day where there's no wind and nothing happening. My children think I'm crazy. But if I'm in the mountains, and there's a storm, and I can weather the storm, and I can climb and brace myself against the elements, then I feel at least now I can use my muscles and use my skill. But if there's nothing happening, then where's the then your muscles don't grow.
It's so me, and I have some friends that have been able to retire early, and a few of them did take, large amounts of time off, but none of them lasted. One person, I know one person that went longer than a year, but not much more, like less than 18 months, and then they start living with purpose again. Because it's like you brought this up earlier in the conversation. Freedom doesn't mean, and people think that when I talk about freedom, they're like, oh, you're the guy sitting at the beach, and it's not true. Do I enjoy the beach? Yes, some days I enjoy the beach, but I don't spend all of my life there. I have things that I want to do and accomplish and help more people. And, you live with purpose, right? And so when we're talking about freedom, and I know you believe the same, Gustav, is that we're just talking about living your freedom. Like, what is it that you are meant to do? And so it doesn't mean that we're sitting on the beach drinking a Mai Tai. That doesn't, maybe one day we do, but that doesn't mean we do that every day. It's I think something, what I always tell people when they think of freedom, that probably means they need to take a break. They're dreaming of taking a break, and they probably need a break so that they can think of what they want to do next. So it's okay to take breaks.
Yeah. And really, people think bliss lies in that doing nothing, lying on the beach. It's not. Bliss lies in having a life that you live a life worthy of your talents, with challenges worthy of with your talents. When people retire, they suffer from distress. Many years ago, I read research that Marine generals, before they introduced programs to help them to reconnect to a next chapter in their lives, that 50% of them died within 3 years of retirement, because they were on this high level of functioning, and then now suddenly they're a racehorse without a race. And what do you do then? You die out of self-defense.
Yeah.
So this whole concept of retirement, I've got a great issue with that. I mean, that was a concept when people actually sort of died at most people died at age 65, and they wanted to just give a person a last year or two to go and sit and do nothing. But now you've got 20 years, 30 years after retirement, and to sit for 30 years doing nothing. If you don't use a muscle, you lose it. If you don't use it, you lose it. So I say, there's no way to retire. The only thing you can retire of is life, and the only way you can do it is to die. So you must not retire, you must rewire and then refire. I think Bob Buford introduced it many years ago in his books Halftime and Game Plan, that he said you must do repotting. So you grew out of your surround, so repot yourself. I say you must just continue a next chapter, get a new plan for a new chapter of purpose. Sometimes people still do need the money. Sometimes people don't need the money. But the real meaning in life is that you constantly continue to use your muscles. My father always said, Gustav, he said, if I start losing it up here, please tell me. But he was running a consulting room until 90 years of age. He died at age 92. Wow. But he always said, Gustav, I want to die with my boots on.
Yeah.
And because he kept using it, he didn't lose it.
Right.
And therefore, this is my ideal. I don't want to retire. I just want to refire and continuously reimagine and reinvent yourself. And I think this is Tom Peters' great book, Reimagine. It's probably one of the best business books ever. That you must constantly reimagine and reinvent. And I think this is also, whether the world goes through a difficult corona time, you must now rethink your life, because sometimes life crumbled. Your whole life sort of came down. But now you must not try to go back to that life. You must realize, for a good reason, some of those bad things, it's actually good that they're in the past. So don't try to go back to the past. Reimagine. You know what we must do? We must realize, and I think this is what I like about you, Steve, is you came to a point in your life that you realize what is important, and what is unimportant is unimportant. And I think this is now the time in world history that this whole virus thing must force us, and any other incident for that, must force us, number one, to think, to realign our priorities, and then redesign our lives according to these priorities. So we must do two things: realign our priorities and come to terms with our mortality. I always say, and we're talking about life here, I always say, you know what? You've only started living once you've come to terms with death. Sometimes people say, you know, you've got a 3% chance to die of this virus. I always tell people, oh, you know what? Bad news. In life, you've got a 100% chance of dying. So the statistical probability that you and I will die is 100%.
Right.
So live a life so much so that at the end of the life, that the person who buries you at least have something nice to say.
Hey there, I want to give you something really big. It's called Clear Path to Customers. It's the way that we get the right language to get the right client. I like to call them your wow clients so that you can have more results, more revenue, more raving fans, and more referrals. And I want to give this to you absolutely free. And all you have to do is go to stevenapolitan.com to check it out, or you can look at the description here. We'll put the details there. As always, remember, choose gratitude and create freedom.